8 things every married couple should talk about openly and often. Part 2. 7. Spiritual things. Really, spiritual things should be something you talk about way before you ever decide to get married. But if you're married and reading this and realizing that spiritual things actually never come up, don't worry, there's still hope. Now, I find that couples are either on the same page with their spiritual beliefs, or, if they're not, their beliefs are usually seldom talked about in order to avoid yet another passionate argument that always ends the same way. Being a Christian, we read in the Bible that we shouldn't marry anyone who doesn't believe God's word like we do. And that's not because we're better than those who don't believe, but because when the Apostle Paul wrote those words, he knew what it would look like to have a marriage between two people who believe and value very different things. Yes, you can make it work. But wouldn't you want a marriage where your spouse believes the same core things that you do? I mean, not believing in the same values, spiritual beliefs, and convictions as your spouse is a huge thing to not have in common. And if you plan on making a relationship like that work, there's going to be a lot that you don't talk about, in order to keep the peace. Because eventually, trying to get your spouse to believe what you believe is going to grow old. The same arguments are going to grow old. And truth be told, they'll either stop because you and your spouse decide to separate, or because you decide to be silent about those things. So, if you Christian find yourself in this place, the most you can do is live out your faith the very best you can, and pray for your spouse. Christianity is never going to look more attractive by trying to convince someone that it is. John 3:34-45 says, "I give you a new command, love one another. Just as I have loved you, you must also love one another. By this all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." 8. Embarrassing things. Yet another one of my favorite things to talk about with Joshua, actually something that often falls under number 5, funny things for us. But embarrassing things can be more serious as well. For the most part, try to be open and set the example that it's okay to laugh at yourself from time to time, or quite often like me. It's also quite alright to start off a conversation by simply telling your spouse that you're embarrassed but you would like to talk to them about whatever it is anyway. There are lots of things on this list that any couple could find embarrassing to talk about, if not done openly and often enough. But being open about most things will take the embarrassment out of many potentially awkward subjects. I like to tell people that conversations are only awkward if you believe they are. If you and your spouse seek to be open and understand each other in most things, then awkward conversations won't really be a thing you have to deal with.